My name is Lindsay Biggs, and this is my vision statement as a future lead teacher in an early childhood classroom. My cultural vision for my future early childhood classroom has been developed based on personal experiences and observations. I have had the opportunity to work in many classrooms ranging from early development to older elementary school classrooms. Through interactions, I have recognized that learners really do come in all shapes and sizes. Their experiences and capabilities are unique to them. In my opinion, these differences should be acknowledged and celebrated as teachers and students work together throughout the year. Teachers should not encourage rote learning, but should support the role of learning in the pursuit of discovery and embrace the powerful agency of culture. By doing so, students will receive a better education that is suited for them and their needs. Quality, equitable education is important to children at a young age because it can affect the rest of their life. A study conducted in Tennessee in the 80s observed several thousand kindergartners. The study looked for academic excellence compared to quality education. The students who succeeded not only did well in later grades, but in their adult life as well. Students who had learned much more in kindergarten were more likely to go to college than students with otherwise similar backgrounds. In adulthood, these students were all earning much more than their counterparts. Early childhood education matters. In order for students to thrive, however, they need to see their classroom as a safe and welcoming environment. The classroom needs to become a community for them where they are willing to take risks and be courageous in their learning. This means they must be exposed to failure and supported through the other side. They need to know that it's possible to fall down and still get up again. Another way to make a classroom welcoming for a child is to rid their room of any negative hidden curriculum. While the formal curriculum consists of the courses, lessons, and learning activities students participate in, as well as the knowledge and skills educators intentionally teach to students, the hidden curriculum consists of the unspoken or implicit academic, social, and cultural messages that are communicated to students while they are in school. The hidden curriculum can send unintentional messages to students that they are inferior or not as needed in the classroom community. Teachers must be aware and cautious of the messages, intentional and not intentional, that are being taught in their room, because every child deserves an education that supports and uplifts them. As an early childhood teacher, I will acknowledge that there are many types of learners with varying abilities and backgrounds entering my classroom. All students deserve a quality, equitable education in a classroom that is safe, welcoming, and void of any negative hidden curriculum. The learning environment is as important to a child's experience at school as is the actual curriculum. The way a teacher organizes, decorates, and fills her classroom, both intentionally and non-intentionally, reflects local and national ideologies, mythologies, and core value orientations. Children have the ability to observe these learning environments and make keen judgments about them. They form judgments about places, who they are for or belong to, whether they can be owned, whether they are places for them or people like them, and what they can do in and with them. School grounds, the building, and the classroom have the ability to alter a child's attitude and behavior as well as their morale and academic achievement. My learning environment will be more learning-focused, less teacher-focused. The decorations in and around the classroom will be student and teacher-produced, reflecting more than just national ideologies. Cultural ideals and beliefs from the students will be represented, making every child feel welcome and safe in their learning environment. I will follow the example of Crow Island Elementary School and reimagine the learning environment to better meet the needs of today's students and future generations. My goal is to create a classroom that tells each student, "This is for you. We knew you were coming." The materials and furniture will all be age-appropriate for my students. The classroom will be kid-sized with tools for learning and creating within easy reach. Understanding that play is an integral element of childhood, my students will have the necessary space to engage in play that leads to development and growth. The learning environment will be organized in such a way that it fosters community and collaboration among my young students. My goal is to make it a place they want to be. Ultimately, my classroom environment will be focused on the learner in order to let them know it is a place for them. It will reflect the cultural beliefs and ideologies of my students, making them feel welcome and included. The classroom will include age-appropriate furniture, materials, and tools necessary for learning and play. This place will promote community and collaboration among the students. Even with welcoming learning spaces, multicultural students will still have struggles to overcome, such as the achievement gap and cultural bias. The term achievement gap refers to any significant and persistent disparity in academic performance or education attainment between different groups of students. The achievement gap has been a concern of educators for many years, especially since very little progress has been made to narrow or close it altogether. There have been many causes identified that contribute to the achievement gap. Reduced access to educational opportunities due to lower quality schools, less materials, and inexperienced teachers is one of the major causes. Public schools make available different types of educational experiences and curriculum knowledge to students in different social classes. Research has shown that regardless of the student or school, resources make a difference in the student's learning experience. Wealthier schools provide more resources for their students. Small class sizes, more highly educated teachers with more years of experience, and a school climate with low teacher turnover improve student achievement. Tracking or ability tracking is another major cause. Tracking denies opportunities, which results in low achievement. Throughout much of American history, children of various ethnic and racial minorities, as well as children from lower socioeconomic classes, have been schooled separately, thus effectively limiting educational opportunity and stunning academic growth for these students. Cultural misunderstandings and biases are another major cause of the achievement gap. Many problems arise from misunderstandings between teachers and minority students or among students from different backgrounds, which results from culturally based differences in behavior. Children who sacrifice their cultural identities and comply with certain school requirements are more likely to attain higher academic achievements than other students who do not. Within my own classroom, my students will receive a quality education coupled with high expectations for their learning achievement. I will continue to educate myself in order to be considered a qualified teacher and will fight to have the necessary learning materials and tools provided for every student. I will advocate to have the tracking system done away with in my school, and I will spend extra time with my students to help them make the necessary adjustments to the high-track curriculum. I will embrace the idea of culturally compatible education, which involves not making school practice isomorphic with the home culture, but rather using what is known of students' own cultures, including their peer cultures, to inform the development of educational practice. I know that students have the ability to achieve academic excellence when they are provided with the opportunity to do so. Students in my classroom, regardless of race or socioeconomic status, will receive a quality and rigorous education coupled with high expectations for their learning achievement. There will be no cultural bias within my classroom. Instead, the students' cultures will be used to support the educational practices and curriculum. Though culture is something that should be celebrated and accepted, many students suffer some form of cultural disability. The concept surrounding culture as a disability states that there is a possibility that every culture teaches people what to aspire to and hope for, and marks off those who are to be noticed, handled, mistreated, and remediated as falling short. This theory is prevalent within the American school systems, where students are frequently pitted against each other to outperform their peers. Of course, this is both logically and social structurally impossible. Failure is a constant possibility in American schools, and by the dictates of the normal curve, it absorbs about half the students along the way. Children who are from minority or different cultural groups deemed disabled in the majority culture are far too frequently the students who experience the most conflict in their learning environment. In the country of the blind, a one-eyed man is confused and confusing. That is what it is like to be in another culture. Sherman Alexie described his experience dealing with cultural conflict while attending school on an Indian reservation. Alexie explained that as an Indian child, he was expected to stay quiet in school, act stupid, and not to aspire towards academic excellence. Alexie said, "A smart Indian is a dangerous person, widely feared and ridiculed by Indians and non-Indians alike. He, like his peers, were expected to fail outside of the Indian world. Those who failed were ceremonially accepted by other Indians and appropriately pitied by non-Indians. Culture can be a significant learning disability for many students due to lack of understanding and cultural intelligence by educators. The miscommunications and alienations of the student results in the child giving up on school, despite the fact that they are, at least potentially, fully capable. Within my own classroom, I will create a learning environment where all cultures are celebrated and accepted in order to deter cultural conflict and disability. I understand that I do not know better than other people in other cultures, and that I'd be foolish to not appreciate how much is known by others in their own terms. Unfortunately, there are many textbooks and resources available for teachers that promote cultural conflict intentionally and unintentionally. Unlike the teachers, in Kawamea's article, I will not simply just cite the words of the textbook with no question as to their origin. I will listen to Kawamea's pleading and further my education regarding the cultures of my students and the curriculum I am assigned to teach. I will strengthen my cultural intelligence by using observation, empathy, and intelligence to read people and situations and to make informed decisions about why others are acting as they are. By being more self-aware, doing significant research, talking to my students and their families, and being more accepting, I can effectively help my students overcome any cultural disabilities they may have experienced in the past. Within the walls of our classroom, students will have the freedom and opportunity to be who they want to be. As a teacher, I will create a learning environment where all cultures are celebrated and accepted in order to deter cultural conflict and disability. I will appreciate and acknowledge how much is known by the other cultures represented in my classroom and encourage my students to show who they are. Students in today's classrooms are exposed to pop culture in many different ways. One of the main ways they intersect is through the media. Movies, television, radio, the internet, and written word all express different messages to young minds relating to cultural themes and issues. As an early childhood teacher, I will not shy away from using and referencing pop culture within my classroom to help my students understand cultural issues at a young age in an appropriate manner. I will combine education with the media using newspaper, radio, TV, comics, and cartoons in the classroom. The media will be used as a tool to help my students understand cultural and social issues in order to inspire them to create their own opinions and understandings of disseminating information. In order to promote an environment and community where students can feel safe enough to explore these complex ideas, I will use classroom and school rituals. Engaging in rituals, both formally and informally, is a human necessity. Many educators have deemed rituals as necessary for the growth of identity and performance within a given classroom. In terms of identity, it concerns everyone and is arguably necessary, meaningful, symbolic, pointing beyond itself and shaping mental dispositions, values, and habits. Participating in rituals and the rituals themselves are important because they are occasions wherein the school or classroom presents to itself and outsiders the ideas and values that justify its project and practice. In my classroom, I will use informal and formal rituals to help my students grow and perform in the classroom. I will approach our rituals with a careful consideration of the needs of the individual within the ritual. Our rituals will be focused on positive ideals that provide students with a sense of belonging to their school and pride in their community. By providing this connection for my young students, I will give them opportunities to academically achieve at higher levels because they will see themselves as a valued and needed member of the classroom. Ultimately, in my classroom, I will use media to help my students understand cultural and social issues in order to support them in developing their own opinions. Core rituals will be used in both the classroom and the school to promote a positive learning community where these topics can be discussed. These rituals will help students feel a sense of belonging and value in both the classroom and the school. Students in the American school system come from varying cultural backgrounds, which necessitates the need for culturally responsive teaching strategies and practices. Culturally responsive teaching is defined as using the cultural characteristics, experiences, and perspectives of ethnically diverse students as conduits for teaching them more effectively. This type of teaching goes beyond infrequently implementing casual multicultural ideas, but instead requires that teachers change their methods to enable kids from diverse racial groups and both genders to achieve. Culturally responsive teaching requires educators to use a wide variety of strategies that cater to a wider range of students. These strategies incorporate experiences and cultural familiarities of the students in order to create a more meaningful, appealing, and understandable curriculum. Culturally responsive teaching is supported by a knowledge base about ethnic and cultural diversity, as well as the ability to convert that knowledge into culturally responsive curriculum designs and instructional strategies. Within my own classroom, I will implement culturally responsive teaching by first getting to know my students and their families. Following the examples of Mola, Mahdi, and Gonzalez, I will conduct household research that will allow me to better understand my students and their individual experiences. I will become a learner with my students as we discover the many cultures represented within the classroom. I will then pair varying strategies and pedagogies with the multicultural curriculum in order to promote higher achievement and academic excellence for all my students. I will anchor the curriculum in the daily lives of my students by connecting their knowledge and skills to content knowledge. Our classroom climate will be one that is conducive to learning for ethnically diverse students. I will know the cultures of my students, understand my students, make warm demands of my students, and have the highest expectations for all of my students. In conclusion, I will implement culturally responsive teaching by knowing and understanding my students and their families. I will use that knowledge to form pedagogies and instructional strategies that promote academic achievement. I will have high expectations for all of my students while promoting a classroom climate that is conducive to multicultural learning. References.